Yo, 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 what's up, party people in the house? Happy Friday. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Before I introduce my guest, we're live today. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Getting back to some normalcy. The message of the week, and it is one man's garbage is another man's treasure. Today, I'm going to be talking with my friend here, Parviziy. He just opened a coffee shop across the street from Delaware, where we're sitting right now, my restaurant in Brooklyn. He's got other businesses, and he's really on the prowl and in touch with the commercial scene in New York City these days. Lots of people have vacated, hence the quote for today. You know, people are looking at their business like garbage right now. They're like, I can't do this. This is not worth it. They're taking off. But there's a lot of hungry young entrepreneurs who are looking at that saying, that is going to be my future treasure. So with that, welcome, Parviziy, last name?
Mukhamadkulov.
Yeah, what he said. He's got a long middle name too. He doesn't want to share that. So what's happening? How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Cool. Good. Parviziy was here for dinner last night. It was a little imbibing, but but we got our
still recovering.
We got our Pellegrino and our coffee, and trying to get back on the good foot. Again, this is exciting because we're actually this is only my second time since March 6th that I've had a live guest.
Nice.
The rest of the time it's been Zoom calls, and remote, and people from all over. I mean, I've had people from Canada, people from California, North Dakota, all over the place. So it feels good to be live. This is how we started a year ago when we started the show, always recorded live in studio in Manhattan, and my guest would sit across the table from me. There's a little more accountability that way. I think it's kind of nice. And then hopefully we have less of the like sound delay that you get from two Zoom calls, one maybe. And we'll see. I might receive a couple deliveries while we're doing the show too. It's Friday.
So we'll pick them up.
It in. So Parviziy here, actually, he took over a coffee shop that I once owned. I opened it up in 2015. Prior to that, it was apartments.
Oh, nice.
Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, they were apartments for the longest time. I just had these two little skinny windows.
Wow.
And we were building this out, and it was a full build out here, full gut. And I'm just sitting in the front door one day waiting for guys to show up, and I see this crew come up and just cut like a huge storefront window out. And I'm like, what's going on over there? And I knew the guy doing the work, so I walked over and I was just like, what's happening? And he's like, we're gonna open these up, they're gonna be commercial. I'm like, great. And so we ended up signing the lease there. We actually had both of the spots. We had the spot next door too.
The nail salon.
Yeah, that was a beer and cheese shop, and then we had the coffee shop and creperie. New York City, you guys can hear the sirens. It is actually it's 9/11 too, so there's a firehouse right up the street, and they just got done with their ceremonies and taking a moment to honor those who we lost that day. But yeah, so we opened that coffee shop up 5 years ago and sold it to Matthew, the guy who owned it prior to you, in 2017. Just too many things going on. Delaware was definitely the big focus, and it was just you know the life, what goes on there. So we sold it to him, and then he just like vacated.
Yeah, he just left.
Maybe like 3 weeks before you opened up or took over. It was pretty quick. And he, the guy just came over to me and said, if there's anything you want from there, grab it. I'm out of here. And he just left. He left the city. And
he left the city too?
Yeah. He
Wow.
just took off. He used to live right up the street, and he totally left. And then tell us, like, so it's called Poetica Coffee, right? And you have another location in
Carroll Gardens, on Smith Street.
So what was the timeline like for you? I want people to like really understand, like, for somebody like you who's like looking for places. How did you? Was there a broker that you used to find the space, or were you just hunting on your own?
I was biking one day. I live right across the street too.
Yeah.
So I was biking. I saw the sign. I knew the place was closed during the pandemic when I would sneak out when we're not supposed to. And
I snuck out every day.
Yes, to see the sun. And then one day I was biking. I saw the sign. It was Sunday, and I called them, and they picked up. I think the owner also owns the broker company, so it was like one big company. And they're like
the building owner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, "Do you want to come see?" I'm like, "I know the place."
So you just called here, or you called the
broker?
The broker.
Yeah. And then they gave me the prices, and I made an offer, and then I emailed my stuff, I think in 2 days I had the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
So did you have to buy, you didn't have to buy anything that was
No.
within, it was just literally
Just rent.
a flip. Yeah. And I know because I put them in, there were a bunch of 220 lines,
They're very nice to tell you lines.
drain lines, like everything you need. You just had to come in and like, you know.
I opened in 10 days.
Yeah.
I think this was the fastest.
Fascinating. and that's really the point, is like, there's been a lot of suffering through this whole thing. Both, people have lost their lives, people have lost their livelihood, people have lost their businesses. But the world is always in that kind of flux, like you've got a baby on the way, you'll watch The Lion King soon enough. It's like a circle of life, where like, one plant dies and it becomes fertilizer for the next plant. And that's kind of what's happening here. And it's definitely an opportunity to open super fast, where like here to do a full gut here, this was an insurance and real estate office previously. And, the guy had taken everything out. There weren't even toilets in here. There were just like holes in the floor. So we did a full gut renovation, took the electric and plumbing back to the street, and then like rebuilt because there were so many leaks and stuff. And that took over a year, and we learned a lot. We were the contractors too. We became the contractors for this spot. And then we were like I said, I saw them they kind of just white boxed those places over there. There was nothing in there. And I think we got open in 3 months there. And it's like, if I had to do it again, I think I could do it faster. And, that's really the name of the game, because when you sign these leases, you get a certain amount of time to build your place out. Yeah. If those of you who aren't aware, you get a commercial lease, you get some time to get your stuff together. And they're usually either they're not charging you rent or they're charging you cheaper rent. And so the quicker you get open, that's in the paperwork. They can't go back on it. If you open in 10 days and you have a 6-month build-out clause, there's absolutely nothing they can do. And that's really like, now it's like the fire time, right? It's just like,
yeah, I think, well, I was thinking about the businesses that closed down, specifically restaurants and then, coffee shops. I don't think the pandemic was the only issue.
Definitely not.
Because, I'm thinking because the moment they said, all bars should close down, schools close down, like a week later, everybody was complaining that they will not survive. Yeah. And I was like, guys, if you can't afford to pay rent for 2 months, are you doing the business right?
Right, exactly. I totally agree. I feel like there was a lot of, if you listen to guys like David Chang, and a lot of, big restaurant personalities, business personalities, and they would say like the market is kind of like imploding. There's like a lot of, the people were closing with rapidity for a while. I know, what was that? It was New Year's Day 2019. That was like a fire sale, and just like so many restaurants closed down because the minimum wage went up the night before, which I thought was odd. Like you had the minimum wage increase started on December 31st because they knew everybody was going to have a big staff that day. They want their payroll taxes, and a lot of people just said it's too much. And then the increasing rents. The story of Cornelia Street Cafe really blew me away. Do you know that spot? No. It's on Cornelia Street in the West Village, or it was. And they'd been open for like 41 years, and they finally said, I think it was New Year's Day. They went through New Year's Eve. That was like their last big hurrah, and they said, we can't afford this anymore. Our rent is it was like 75 grand a month. Wow. And the place it's like twice the size of this. It's not that big, it's a small place. And I was like, where were the red flags at like 25 grand? Like, I just like, how can you conceive, especially for a place that doesn't, if you've got like, if you do like online sales, or you're selling information, or you're a media company or something like that, where it's really super scalable, but like you're confined.
You have limited abilities. Well, the renting crisis, I think, started about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And right now, like, then again, everything seems like, they throw it under the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Manhattan is empty. It was empty. Last year in 2019, January, Manhattan was empty already. Mm-hmm. I had places, because I was looking for new coffee shops. I had places that would collect 17,000 rent that were up for rent for 8,000.
Yeah.
And that was already going on. And then whatever happened this year just accelerated it. And here we are. We have the crisis now.
Right. And you know, nobody likes to say like, I failed. You know what I'm
That's,
saying? Like,
yeah.
it sucks to be like, you know, I got into this. And I think, you know, the industry was pushing for certain things and people kind of like drink the juice of that. And we did it first too. You know, we totally overextended, but I realized it pretty early on here. And I was like, all right, now we're going to fight hard to like get that back. Cause I didn't know that this was going to happen, but I was like, man, I think that like, the toothpick's gonna snap. It's not gonna, you're walking on thin ice. And so I worked really hard to get us into like a sound financial situation. Like we took no loans here. We got no PPP. We got nothing.
Same here.
Yeah. So we just like rolled up our sleeves and did it. And we're in better financial, situation now than we were in March. And, it was 3 years of just like grinding and not collecting to get to this point.
And then
so glad
when you finally started to collect, pandemic
I was so ready. No, I'm straight up. We just kind of cleared up a big thing in January, and spring is our best time of year. And I was like, man, like this is gonna be it. It's gonna be collection time. And then like early March, they were like, so restaurants might have to close. And I'm like, no.
I am not ready.
I was like, can we just wait until like July? And we didn't get that, but not for nothing. We pulled it off anyways. And obviously I think, it would have been better if it would have played out the other way, but we're okay.
But I think it's, when we opened here, we opened in August 1st. So by end of July, I had the lease.
Yeah.
And everybody would come up to me and tell me, well, is it an interesting time to open a business? And I opened, 7 businesses, and some of them failed, some of them didn't. Yeah. I'm like, it's not the right time, really.
Never.
I mean, there's not a perfect day you can open a business. There's always going to be something wrong.
Always.
And if you can I like it better because if it's making money now, then I know for sure that everything comes back to normal. I'll do even better. That's
what I got my sights on too. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute. Stay tuned. Hang tight. All right, everybody, we're back again. The Entrepreneurial Web. Happy Friday. Here with my boy, Parviziy. He just opened up Cafe Poetica directly across the street, or Poetica Coffee.
Poetica Coffee.
Sorry, I'm making up names now.
Let me write them down.
That'll be the next one. Poetica Coffee. Is your second Coffee Poetica location?
As Poetica, yes.
Yeah, right.
We had other locations, me and my partner, but then we decided we're gonna part our ways.
Right.
So this is all together. This is a 4th.
Yeah.
But I only have 2, and he has 2.
That's good.
So, yeah.
Sometimes that's the right move.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about during the break about the SBA and the PPP and how neither of us got any, and just kind of like how there's a lack of transparency and information surrounding those. And like for me here, my entire front of the house staff just left town. They left the city and haven't come back. So taking it would have just been a loan for me. It wouldn't have been a grant because you have to bring back your previous staff and keep them on for some time. And I wasn't interested in a loan. I'll take a grant.
I think the SBA loans, I mean, right now, nobody's like, everybody's doing whatever they have to do. Then we're going to see a lot of, SBA inspectors found a fraud.
Yeah, no.
There'll be a lot of that. I think.
It's going to get crazy. I've got a friend who works, I can't remember what bank she works for, but as soon as the pandemic hit and they went remote, her main job was facilitating PPP for small businesses. And I saw her maybe like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, how's it going? Like, what's the situation? And she's like, it's going to be a total disaster. She was like, the lenders don't even know how they're going to call stuff in, much less the recipients. So like, I think some people will benefit from it. I mean, besides the banks, besides the lenders. I think some small businesses, it will have serviced them. And I've talked to some people, especially people that have like dedicated accountants that just like, all they do is like read the fine print and deal with that kind of stuff. But for like, a small guy like me that doesn't have that, it doesn't have regular accessibility to that, I think it could be it's potentially devastating.
Oh yeah, it's just like, speaking of 9/11, I think I read a lot of stories about what happened right after 9/11 because all downtown was shut down,
Right.
and there was an SBA loan, and this lady was like, "Well, I just said that I had an office there, and they gave me 300,000." And then 12 years later, they came up and they was, can you show us the lease? And now I didn't have the lease. It's 8 years in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy.
Yeah. So keep your paperwork, guys, for a long time. You're right. I mean, that's like the lesson, right? It's like this, they could come back and knock on your door, like way, way down the road. And I mean, what about commercial leases? Like the people that kind of just defaulted and vacated and didn't pass their lease on, like, I'm hoping he got out of his lease, or I don't know. Did you take over the lease? Or
No. I
started
have a new one. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you were telling me the other day, that's really what's happening. Like landlords are negotiating new leases, and at first they're kind of like holding strong, and then they'll call you back and be like, how much did you offer again? I mean, what are some of the things that you've seen on the street? You've looked at a number of places.
Oh, right? I always look.
Right.
Well, the key money is almost gone. That I can tell you for sure. Most of the guys, I saw this place, they even have milk from April inside the fridge. The guy just literally closed down one day, hoping that tomorrow he'll come or open in 2 days, but never opened. And then the landlord was like, well, everything is here, as you can see. We're going to keep money. I'm like, no. I'm expecting a cheap rent because, I don't know what's going to happen next year. Because if we have the second wave in fall with the flu and everything, and they're going to shut us down again, and maybe more aggressively. I was like, I have a lease, and then we know that the government will not step in on time and help.
Right.
So it's just going to be me. And I was like, I need to make sure that the first year at least is going to be cheap. And they're very, every landlord is working with you. The only thing I noticed is that they ask more deposits. So before it was 2 deposits or 3 deposits, now it's 4.
Right.
With commercial rent, you can do that.
I've been in meetings where they were asking 6. And, it was negotiated that like every year one would be released, because it's like crazy to have that much like caught up in escrow. It's like, you're like, okay, like every year release 1 so that like after 5 years you have
two deposits.
1, whatever. And that's like more normalized, seems more realistic. I've heard from people that were open previously who, either have left or are still kind of hanging on, that the landlords are being really tough on the old leases and not negotiating at all. But if you're a new person coming in, they're like,
I think that was the whole, I think they always did that. Because so many times when you rent a place, after 5 years of doing business, maybe the guy was late a couple of times, or this is like, whole ticket situation when you get a ticket for the garbage and then this is the apartment above you. And then you send it to the landlord and he's like, no, it's not mine. No, it's yours.
Right.
I think after 5 years, it's like one of those, like relationships that you get tired of. And they're like, oh, I'm gonna give this guy cheaper rent. I'll just start fresh.
Right.
Hopefully I have better,
It's like
dating.
It's like a new girlfriend, right? I've had it on the show a couple times. He actually just lives right around the corner. He's like a premier tenant lawyer in the city. And he was on not that long ago. Again, he was one of my first guests, but he came on just for a part of the show a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, he's like, basically there's going to be like a lease crisis, an eviction crisis. And he deals a lot with residential, but he's, very familiar with the commercial scene. And he said basically on both sides, residential and commercial, towards the previous tenant, the landlord's like, fuck you, pay me, But then when you talk to somebody like you who's talking to the landlords with new leases, they're like, yeah, okay, like, who knows what's happening in some of these backroom deals. I think some of them are just happy to get money, but they're being like super tough.
Oh, yeah. And then there are some landlords, they're like, I have a commercial laundry I closed it down because of pandemic, not because I failed. No, I had problems there for the last 3 years. And it just, when I had this calmness of, being at home and not being worried, I was like, you know what? This is the time.
This feels good.
But I have a 3,000 square feet warehouse there. I had it for 5 years. My lease is up. I think it's August. It was the end of it. I'm home. the place is shut down. The landlord called me every day. I was like, what do you want me to do?
Right.
And then what he did was he said that I did some lightning work, this and that, and sent a handwritten note saying that I owe him like $20-something thousand. And I was like, what is this? I'm like, send it from your lawyer. I mean,
Right.
handwritten.
Handwritten note.
Yeah. And then somehow he started to send the same thing to all my friends. Yeah, that was the weird part. That was like, I wanted to work with you. I'm just not going out and seeing you because, I don't know what's going on outside with the pandemic. And then I was like, you know what? I called the lawyer. I'm like, do what you're going to do.
Right.
Whatever it is, because, I don't want to negotiate with this guy.
And the courts are going to be backed up forever on a lot of these things. I mean, one of the things Sam, the tenant lawyer, was saying is it's going to take forever. A lot of things are going to just go to judgment or something like that. And he was like, a lot of people, it won't affect them right now. But he was saying, like, if you go to buy a home, I think he said the judgments are good for like 20 years. So in like after that, like in say 22 years, you go to buy a house, like they could come after you, just like what we were talking about with like the PPP. Like they might be like, remember us? And like also, so you gotta be really careful with this crazy stuff.
I think it was a residential. I think the city will step in because they know how bad it will hit specifically the New York area.
I mean, they haven't done anything yet.
Oh no, they have a program. They have a program. You apply, they'll let you know. But I think what they will wait is, they waited first to make sure everybody pays. Now, 80% of the people paid. I think the 70% paid. They're just waiting for more people to pay, and whoever will be left, they'll be like, okay, what up until this period we'll cover.
Right.
Just like a first default protection program for residents. Like the first time when you default on your rent, you go to court, and then after 2 hearings, they will just say, okay, the city will cover it.
Or they'll just say, like, when are you leaving?
No, you have to leave. That's for sure.
Right. But now, like, that's not even happening. So people are staying because you're not allowed to, like, actually kick them out. And then it's just like, it's turning into this kind of like crazy spiral. And yeah, what Sam was saying was going to take like years to pan all this out. And then it seems like with commercial, though, it's just like they're just hanging people out to dry, and people are like, I mean, obviously people are leaving spaces, they're just like getting out because like that hole gets deeper and deeper, and the liability there. Commercial rents tend to be higher than residential. I don't think anybody's paying $75,000 a month for an apartment. I hope not.
That should be a very good apartment.
I mean, they do like that credit check, right? And it's supposed to be a certain percentage of your income.
Yeah,
I'd love to have that problem. That would be so crazy.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to take another quick break, everybody. We'll be back in just a few. Hang tight. Listen to some more information, some more insights from my man Parviziy here. We'll be back in just a few. You listen to the Entrepreneurial Web. All right, everybody. We're back again. It's the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with neighboring business owner, kind of extraordinary business personality, Parviziy. So give us a little like kind of background and timeline on like the businesses that you've opened. How young did you get started in it, to the current state?
Oh, I started at 17, right after high school, when I moved from Texas to New York. And then the rent, the bills I had to pay. And then I started working in this company that would fix washing machines. So basically, I had no time. I had to learn quick. So I learned in 2 months. And then they gave me a van. I would drive around the laundromats, hotels, and fixing the machines. That would pay my bills, more or less. It was a good pay. And then as I was going through, they had 2 partners. They broke up, and then whole shit show started.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, had 2 years of experience, and I started, it's time to do on my own terms. That's how I started my first business. And then I was like 20. Young still, drinking, all that. I would work 3 days and then party 4 days.
Sleep 4.
Yeah, I mean, I would make good money, for someone single. And then
it was the same business, like repairing laundry machines.
And then as I was looking, I saw this laundromat that was closed down. Everything was there. In laundromats, it's basically the plumbing and electricity.
Yeah. Right.
And it was there. Somebody just took out the machine. The place was vacant. And I took it over. I think that was a mistake. Snake was the mistake.
Yeah.
So I took it over. I worked for a year. I couldn't do it. I just had to leave it. I spent like over $100,000. That was my first failure.
Yeah.
And then after that, I kept on doing for another like 4 years. Kept on doing laundry machines. The company grew. We had about 5 mechanics who got right into that big place with machines. We got distributorships and all that. Everything was going fine. The only problem with that business was it's just too much problems, too much things that you have to stay on top, never ending.
Worse than a restaurant.
A little bit. Oh, we serviced Rikers Island, the prison. Oh, that's crazy, because you have to send. One of my technicians had a domestic situation going on, and they had a court with his soon-to-be ex-wife and all that. And I apparently signed up saying that if something like that happens, I will let them know. I send the guy, they're calling me, screaming, like, why you send? He's not supposed to be. He's a criminal now.
Man.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And I always wanted to have a coffee shop. I think coffee shop business, out of not to hurt your feelings, but out of all of them is the simplest one and the easiest one, because the transaction between the customer and the business, or in the barista or the server, it's literally 1 minute.
Yeah.
You come, you place order, you pay right away, you get your beverage, the transaction is done. This is where it starts.
Yeah.
I think that's very important to kind of have a calm business.
Yeah. And I agree. Like it was a pretty simple operation. For me, that place opened at 6:30 every morning, and we would get out of here about 1 every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And we started to have we had, in 2015, we had 5 businesses and 5 business partners. And then one by one, they started to leave. And it was like, okay, we're down to 3 partners and 5 businesses, and something had to give. The beer store just went under. It was just like, there was a high peak in that market, and we came in at the peak, not before, which is always rough. And then it just took a nosedive. And those places just pre-pandemic disappeared from the city landscape. There were like craft beer stores all over. I mean, we lost 5 just from Cortell U to 5th Avenue here in Brooklyn. 5 like really nice ones, and
I know one on Ditmas that closed down too.
Yeah. So, but with the coffee shop, it got to the point where I was operational at both. So I was there at 6:15 every morning, and sometimes I wouldn't get out of here until 1.
Ooh.
And we closed at 5 in the winter and 7 in the spring and summer and fall. And then here it was just like 5 to midnight every night. And it was just like this grind. And I'm looking, the thing that really was the gig for me was, I'm looking at the numbers of both, and I'm like, it costs the same to run them both, essentially. Like it literally costs, because we cooked. We cooked a lot of food there. So I'd have cooks on, baristas, the whole thing. And here it's like, I got cooks and bartenders, and I'm like, but we make a whole lot more money here. And I'm like, so like I can part ways with that. I can sleep in a little bit, and walk with like essentially the same amount of money. And that's what we did. And it allowed me to focus more in here, because it was tough,
Well, yeah, I mean, you need like rest, first of all. So I've done it before, and it's very hard for me. At least unless I really, really have to.
Right.
If I don't like do that, the business will go under. I'll do it. But other than that, I'll do everything not to do it.
And I had a good run here where I had full staff, up until March, and everybody left. So now I'm doing all that as well.
Back to square one.
But it's great, because it was kind of like opening again, like starting over again, but without the opening expense, without the opening.
And with a whole bunch of experience.
Yeah.
That is
fantastic.
priceless. Yeah.
And I had always wanted to own a coffee shop too. Like, I've just been in the industry for, decades, and still like I have basically a commercial machine at home. I actually been pulling your beans. They're nice. They work really nice on my machine. They, not all beans work well on it, but I enjoy it.
We have the best beans.
They're good. And so, but like, I wanted a commercial machine so bad. I wanted the whole thing. And friends of mine were running the New York headquarters for Intelligentsia. So that's who we were getting coffee from. And they helped me set everything up and train the whole staff. And I used to hang out in their coffee lab all the time, like way before.
I worked. Who did you work with? I worked with Intelligentsia.
Back then it was Ramin. Do you know Ramin Narimani?
No.
And then it was Justin and...
Justin, I know.
Yeah.
And Amy.
I didn't know Amy. It was Justin and somebody else. and this kid Jordan too. So back in the day, it was Ramin and Jordan. Jordan moved out west. Ramin now runs this roasting collective. I think they're in the Navy Yard or Red Hook, one of the two. He's still around, still like huge coffee personality. The guy's amazing. Um, anyways, yeah, I just like had this long, fantasy of having that big commercial machine with the lights and everything. We did it, and it was great. I'm not sure. I would rather replicate this, do something like Della again than like that, or combine the two, where it's like coffee in the morning and this at night. So those expenses are all under one roof. It was hard having
But I think the
places.
coffee business is much better. I don't know, I can't talk about all the cities, but for instance, there are fewer people in New York going to Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts because every year there are less and less, and there are more coffee shops. They do their own thing. They give that, sense of good coffee, which most of them do. I mean, they're good coffee. I mean, Starbucks. I always say Starbucks doesn't sell coffee. They sell their logo,
Right.
because and the same as Dunkin' Donuts. I use Dunkin' Donuts because they have parking in the bathroom. And but coffee business, I think, has got much better. I think we have another 5 years. They estimating that the business will jump to 300%.
Yeah.
So there will be more coffee shops every day, and I think that this one is here to stay. And I think it's better to open now than it was 5 years ago.
Now you've hurt my feelings.
Yes.
No, I have no regrets. I really have no regrets. Again, it was something that I'd wanted to do for so long, and I learned so much from that process. And it helped me refine what I do here, and it helped us make this much better. The same with the retail store, with the beer store. I mean, anytime you're purchasing like that, and I've done it now. I still do a ton of purchasing for the Windsor Terrace Food Co-op and for the juice box. It all just contributed to make everything a better running machine. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll get back into it. But I think now what's happened since March definitely got rid of a lot of bad coffee shops. Ones that were just getting. I mean, I've seen some bad stuff out there, and I think you're right. There's going to be a nice revival. I mean, I remember what it was like in 2005 and 2006, when it was just a handful of great places like 9th Street Coffee, and they were using counterculture. They were the only people in New York using counterculture and or not counterculture. Who was it? Stumptown. They were using Stumptown.
Stumptown, yeah.
They kind of put them on the map here, and then Everyman, Espresso, Abrazo, which is still on East 7th. It was just there were only a handful of really great places. I heard Grumpy. A lot of the Grumpy places left, especially the one on Mott Street. I used to go there all the time. That's sad, because that's where I really fell in love with the pure shot of espresso at that place. They make some really great coffee.
And I think they had this the rent prices. I know this guy opened last year. He opened about 9 stores. He opened one on Smith Street. The direct competition there. And then the whole pandemic, and then I was like, I'm worried about the guy.
Yeah.
Because there's you opened 9 stores and you had 3, or I think he had 4, and then you opened 9 in 1 year. That's a stretch. I hope. I mean, all the stores are open, so I'm hoping that But Starbucks will leave eventually, I think, because now they are more outside every 12 hours or every 13 hours they open a new store in the world. It's amazing. But Starbucks is big in Russia. I know Russia. I've been there, and China, Japan. Oh, in Tokyo, Starbucks is number 1.
Really?
Yeah. And then Blue Bottle just went in, so Blue Bottle is kind of becoming a competition there. But I think these big players going to be out from big cities.
Yeah.
And this opens a whole new world for us.
Right. No, I think it'll be a revival, and if the leases are better terms. Something I've been thinking about. I mean, are any of the leases you've signed recently? Is this the only one you've signed since March?
Yeah, thus far.
Is there any kind of pandemic response written into the lease? Are people doing that in the riders or anything? Because I feel like everybody really has to protect themselves. Both sides need to think really strategically.
Right.
If we get shut down again, what happens? Is it just fuck you, pay me, or is there any backup any kind of protection being written in?
Here, I didn't do anything because the rent was so cheap and it's not even worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can close it down for 5 months and still be back and
Yeah.
and fine. But the other places that I make an offer is basically, if there will be no indoor dining, then the rent is 50%. And there was like, oh, let's do 60-40 because you will still have to go. The coffee shop is a to-go business, this and that. But my offer is it has to be 50 if that happens again. And if I can't make it through that, even with the 50% rent, then it should be like you give the 50% of the deposit back and just leave, with good guy clause, and that should be the end of it. And the landlords are willing to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. That's good to hear.
I mean, some places did. I'm on my Carroll Gardens, the landlord stepped in and helped me.
Good.
And we were going back and forth, and I was like, listen, I mean, I need some help here. Because when everything was shut down, we stayed open, but our sales went down by 80%. We had like, we make $100 a day.
Right.
That's not even enough to just pay.
It barely covers the coffee. The coffee itself. Forget about the water and the.
And then he stepped in, and then I guess it depends on the relationship that you have with the landlord. And if you have one of those, family landlords that they have a couple of buildings, but they, they do their own operation.
Right.
There was a room to talk. I know my friend owns a laundromat down on 5th Avenue, and his landlord didn't give any relief, but what he did was for 3 months, the rent, he just put it at the end of the lease. So he still can operate and work without being in a danger of being at the default. But I think it's with this now, the writers will get longer. There were 42 pages, now it's going to be 52.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, you got to be you have to be super specific, like the way you were saying, all these details about this is how we should respond. There has to be some give where like you're not put out, but I'm also not put out. And the goal is that either we have a nice mutual departure where you're not suing me and I also don't owe you like tens of thousands of dollars, or some wiggle room to where we can both come out of this together, because it doesn't benefit anybody to have a bunch of empty spaces. And what you were saying too about Starbucks, I mean, they only go in high traffic areas.
Right.
There's not much traffic in Manhattan right now.
Not at all.
like there's still the one on 7th and 9th right here, and that they're pretty new, but that's still residential Brooklyn is popping, and nothing's really changed, but like the office space has definitely
I mean, they have enough money. They have enough money for
They should give us some.
They don't get love from me.
I'll give you my address. Send me some money, Starbucks.
But I like how they started though.
In Seattle?
Yeah. I read his books and stuff.
It's a great story. I mean, I like the way McDonald's started.
Yeah.
I mean, what it turned into, not so much, but it's inspirational. And for anybody that's looking, I think you and I have a kindred spirit where we just want to keep finding things and doing things, and it's just fun. It's exciting. As soon as the place is up and running, I'm like, okay, let's move on. It's not much fun anymore.
This is the same situation that I have right now. I am constantly looking because I'm bored. Once you have that, the staffing problem is solved and you have everything going on, you'll be like, oh, what do I do now?
There's no chaos.
Yeah. Because I want that, you look at the place, then you do all the research and then go on the website and check what happened there. And then my best part is I just go in front of it and just count people for hours.
Yeah.
And then, from 8 to 10 and then all the busy times and the weekends. And then at some point you'll be like, this is the place.
That's it. Yeah.
And then the whole, setting it up, putting the stuff where they go.
Yeah.
And then at one day you just look at it, everything blend in, and you have the whole machine working, with humans and customers all come together. Everything works, not always the way you plan, but sometimes even better.
Almost never the way you plan.
Right. But that's the drive. That's what I like.
Yeah, same here. I really enjoy that. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. Everybody hang tight. We'll be back in just a few. All right, folks, we're back. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web here with my man Parviziy. He is a serial entrepreneur, always looking for new places. So you were telling us you went from laundry into coffee shops.
Right.
And you've opened 4 coffee shops now.
Altogether, yeah.
And you split with your old partner, and you have 2 right now. And we were just on the break talking about commercial leases and commercial like buying buildings with commercial and residential in them, and how like
How crazy
how
it is.
hard it is to make money. But that's like the fantasy, right?
Right.
Is to like own that building, but you can't just own one because the taxes are like too crazy, right? Like if you, I can't remember what the thing is, but it's like if you buy a building within 2 years, if you buy another one, you keep deferring
Yes.
some tax, something. I can't remember, but like that's why you just got to keep buying buildings.
Well, the problem is that you have to have the money to buy the buildings, and the buildings in New York are crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like at least 5 million.
Right.
You know how much taxes you have to pay until to get to 5 million in your bank account? And then if you go through a mortgage, it's not your building, it's the bank's.
The bank's building.
You just manage it for them.
You're just borrowing it, right?
They're managing it for them, doing the dirty work. Yeah. I think, the glamping is a new thing. Have you heard about that?
Sure.
I'm looking into like Poconos and lands and how they build these small cabins in Europe, and they'll ship it to you.
Right.
And I think that's something that I would definitely do. Get like acres of land, and then just put those cabins, and you don't have to deal with most of the stuff that you would deal in Brooklyn.
Right, because a lot of them, I mean, some of them have they have running water in like one part of the of the camp of the grounds, and then everything else. Sure, like we've been to places like that where it's like there's just a communal building with like running water, maybe like an outdoor kitchen, and then everything else is just like nature, peeing in the woods.
That's why you go there. That's why you pay money.
I do that shit here. I don't care. Like every time I go to work out in the park, like without failure, I go to the bathroom right before I leave, and I run in, and
it's good for me. It's good for the nature.
Like, shit, man, I gotta piss, and I just I gotta find. It's tough in the winter because there's no foliage, so I gotta find.
It's cold.
Well, that
it's cold.
It doesn't matter. But like you gotta find that good cover. You shouldn't want to, some old lady.
I have my own spaces in the park where I use
trails. I know. I got my spots.
It's like when the spring comes, there's no flowers there. It doesn't grow.
So yeah, we've definitely talked about looking into some places upstate. Like my wife's from the Finger Lakes, and her sister still live up there, and like buying something up there that you could rent out, especially like. There's some spots where you got the lake in the summer, and there'll be like a small ski resort in the winter, so you can get rentals year round.
Yeah.
And then when we go up, we have a nice place to stay. I definitely thought about that in terms of a purchase, and like those places. I mean, I could buy like 3 of them today. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
These places are like 110,000, and they're like they're small, but they're on property. Like you actually get property with it, as opposed to here where it's like you get your little Lego.
And you can put your garbage baskets right over there. Just one.
One day I'll have to tell you this story of like the garbage over there, because it was a residential building and we moved a bunch of stuff. And these crazy people upstairs, and like we moved the garbage receptacle and everything, like built a brand new one, and they just like they weren't having it, and like literally putting garbage in the front of our storefronts is crazy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
We didn't get tickets.
Well, no, because it looked like it was our garbage, like cops had to be called. It was a whole. I almost had this lady arrested. And that's commercial management. Business management in New York City. Like it's so crazy, some of the stuff that happens. And I'm still shocked that the laundromat can be more crazy than a restaurant.
Servicing the commercial laundry equipment, yes.
Yeah.
Especially,
you do have a lot of equipment.
Yeah. Because you have this wide spectrum of businesses: hospitals, prisons, juveniles. We wouldn't go, and some hospitals like infectious disease, like where my guys would just walk away from there.
Oh my god!
And I had to send somebody to get the van. Man, we had some fun times.
What was that? That had to have been crazy during the pandemic, because like you still people were washing laundry like crazy. In, like,
right, and we did.
Stuff.
Yeah, we did about 70% of all the nursing homes in New York. My guys were like, "No, we're not doing it. I don't care
crazy.
if we." Yeah.
So, and then the other hot topic that just was announced earlier this week is that dining rooms in New York City can open at 25% starting September 30th, which gives you how many?
One seat. Here, he'll give me just one. I have 4 seats, 4 tables. So he'll give me one for 2 persons.
God, man, you gotta just charge money. You gotta just be like.
But you know, like I was looking. I have to buy a non-contact temperature probe.
Right.
That, you know, either you will have to scan somebody on the forehead with like a gun-looking thing, or get one of the fancy ones that's like $2,000. I'm like, if I get it for $2,000 and then I have one table, I only 20 years for that money to come back. So I don't think I'll do indoor. Not here. I'll do on Smith Street.
And you don't need it. I mean, here you've got so much available outdoor space.
Right.
So what are some of the other stipulations they have? You have to do tracing.
Everybody has to leave their phone number. I don't know how they'll do it.
They said 1 person per table.
Per table, yeah, per group.
Yeah, per group. So 1 contact trace per group, which is crazy. Where are we supposed to put that? Where we keep that information?
Yeah, and then you have to put the big billboards for the, I call it snitches. You know, if you see that the social distancing is not working, they have to put like text your picture here, kind of thing.
Really?
With your code or something, so they know it's coming from your place. And then 50% by November 30th, I think.
Did they announce that?
Well, depending on how it will go, just like, you know, they jerk us all the time.
The school situation is already like, my wife was telling me this morning, like 2 teachers in Sunset Park that just went back to work last week tested positive in this school, 2 in Park Slope at a place right just at the other end of Prospect here. So like putting people in small spaces and they're already testing positive. And even if there's not like a major health threat, they're gonna shut everything back down, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, my sister, she's a director of education at a private school down by Brighton Beach area. And she says it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we get quarantines and we try to open because it's a private school, and then all of a sudden somebody tests positive and they have to go back again.
Right. Did they shut down classrooms? Or they
they're not open yet.
Yeah. So
they're trying to open.
That's definitely, but I feel like somebody has to take the step to see, like the questions around herd immunity and all that. Like, does it exist? Are we in this situation, or is it as crazy and fucked up as it, you know, some people are saying?
You know, my thing was, what will come down to it is that at some point, as a nation, we'll just say, you know what, let's just take the risk. I think it was already happening because, you know, 192,000 people died, you know, related to COVID, and people are like, yeah. I mean, no, think about it.
People like that, yeah.
No, it's crazy because we have 9/11. It was a horrible, you know, I was a child. I remember looking at it from Uzbekistan, and we had like 3 days of nonstop coverage, and we never get that. We don't get news there.
Right.
It was just, you know, and the whole thing, the 3,000 people died. We still mourn every day, but now we have 3,000 people dying every day, and this whole, you know, I don't want to wear my mask. You know, where's my? It's all.
No, there is a big. It's very polarizing.
Yeah.
But you know, I think here, like, I think each, especially urban area, is going to respond a little different. I mean, New York got nailed, you know, and like everybody, let's just get it. Like everybody had it. Everybody got a little. I was telling somebody the other day, like, you know, you remember the Dave Chappelle episode where he's like, just sprinkle some crack on him. Like, like we all got some Corona sprinkled on us. Jesus,
Corona.
God.
Because, you know, one more thing about the statistic is that they said all the hospitals needed money.
Yeah.
And because Corona treatment is 100% funded by the government, they're like, maybe the numbers are a little jacked. Like,
sure, okay,
we have 12 million people in New York. We had thousands of cases every day, and all of a sudden we have 7.
Right.
And have your lifestyle changed? Like, it was changed in May and April. After that?
Not me. I mean, I still worked every day. All my places stayed open. You know, we did things a little differently, but like, life here didn't change. In the neighborhood, it was, you know, besides like a little less, you know, traffic.
Right. But everybody was out there. We are essentially doing the same thing as we were doing before, but somehow their system is working. It's bullshit.
See. We'll see. Anyways, I hope everybody's safe. I hope it's good. I'm definitely gonna open at 25%. I'm gonna do my best, you know, and I'm just gonna do this, keep the doors and windows all open and put fans on. I didn't run the air conditioner at all this year. I saved a lot of money. Sorry, Con Ed. You were never that great to me anyways. But just keep the air flowing, and then we'll see what happens and take that step. So, well, thank you for coming on. We got to wrap up.
Thank you for having me.
You guys check this guy out. He's Poetica Coffee. I'm gonna make up my own business out of this. I am getting back in the coffee industry. Right here on Prospect Avenue, and where are you at in Carroll Gardens?
Smith Street and the Grove.
Smith and DeGraw. Cool. Hot spot. I love it over there. Cool. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Peace out.